you look at the narratives that we get from our study participants, it's like it's like I felt like I was being instructed to do something. I
Mhm.
felt like I was being taught by somebody in the future who knew something that I didn't know. It was trying to teach me and guide me in a direction. And these are when you read one or two, that's interesting, but we have thousands of people saying this type of thing, or there was some.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing today? Welcome to Looshes Labs Podcast. I'm here with two very special guests, Mr. Armando Landrian, as well as the one and only Dr. Jim Segala. How are you guys doing today?
Very
Doing
good. How
well.
are
How
you?
about you?
Doing great. Thank you. Thank you for coming today. This is going to be an exciting roundtable discussion. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm looking forward to this.
Armando, do you want to give us a quick background of yourself and let people know who you are?
Yeah, I've always been interested in UFOs ever since I was a child. Uh, we used to see those in cartoons. We used to see in lunch boxes and whatnot. And as I got a little older, I had some sightings, especially here in Connecticut. Primarily, they were red orbs, but there was also two that looked like submarines. One was rectangle with a red orb, um, triangle. Um, so these things piqued my interest. I got involved here with the Connecticut chapter of MUFON when they first started having their meetings here, and I've been hooked ever since. My role has basically been to help out as much as I can in our chapter to learn more and to get the support of our people in our group. As equipment became available, I started buying some equipment to do the sky watches. I do have two Mater units here in my house, Node 106 and Node 300. Node 300 primarily is a field unit that we're testing out. So it's not in the market yet, but when it's not in use in the field for sky watches, I run it here in my house. So two of those units here. I also have four radiation meters running here. Each one of those meters have their own radiation meter. The MUPAS, of course, the MUPAS Mini has a radiation meter. And I also run a separate radiation meter. Those three meters are shared to the GMC radiation map, world radiation map. And that is available to anybody that wants to look at the data. You can look at the live data as well as the historical data. So those are available for free. Um, when it comes to Mater, you can go to mater.site and you will see a map of all the Mater units that we have. There's about 175 that you will see on the map. Once again, no password needed. Um,
Now, these are
Anybody
just in
can
Connecticut, or these are all over the country?
worldwide.
Oh, worldwide. That's
World,
fantastic.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, we have some in England, we have some in I believe Hawaii, we have some in France, Canada. The bulk of it is here in the United States, but
Yeah.
we have in other locations. And you can go on the map and click on any of those little dots. Each one of those little dots represents a Mater unit, and you can see the data. Um, you can go to the spreadsheet and look up the information on it. Um, it's excellent for anybody doing any kind of research. If you're doing any investigation for a sighting, you can go to any of those Mater units that are nearby where this happened and see the information and see if there was any alert. We don't always get an alert. In the Mater units, we just had a case here, and I think that I forward you some information on it. And the Brantford case here in Connecticut that is currently being investigated by the Mater team. The final results are not in yet, so it's an ongoing investigation. But Mater 106, which is here in my house, and Mater 139, I think it's the one in Wallingford. did have spikes in the magnetic field, and also one of my um, radiation meters has some readings on it. So this will be the first case where we have a documentation via a radiation meter. So it's an interesting case, and like I said, I waiting for Fran to make it public. He's very excited about this case. There's also a possibility that there was an abduction. In this case, there's some missing time, but it is pretty interesting.
I just wanted to chime in real quick. For the viewers, MUFON, and correct me if I'm saying this correctly or incorrectly, is the Mutual UFO Network.
Yeah,
Okay. And how long have you been a part of the Connecticut chapter?
over 8 years.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah, and my role there is to do the sky watches and help with some meetings and whatnot.
And you guys collect reports, right, from people that have observed UFO, the phenomenon or anything like that. They'll call you, they leave a report, you go out and study it afterwards.
Yeah, we have a website. It's mufact.com. For Connecticut, anybody can go on their website and file a report. That report will go to the MUFON headquarters, and from there they will send a notification back here to Connecticut to assign an investigator, and then that investigator will go out and investigate the case and file the report with MUFON headquarters, as well as our chapter here.
Very
So
nice. Dr. Jim Segala, would you like to do a quick intro on yourself and your work as well? And then we just go ahead and get into the roundtable discussion.
Sure. So I've been doing investigation of interactions with the phenomena, let's call that, where people actually have some troubling experience when they're dealing with the phenomena. They might have a lapse of time, they might see something, they might get, scared, they might go into a catatonic state or something like that. We're calling those just general experiences that people are having. And investigating those is quite hard to do because you're dealing with human reactions, human emotions. So what we do is we spin in a lot of technology into the to eliminate a lot of the variations that people have. So my job over the past, basically 15 years is to create the environment so people can provide us the information so we can understand why we're seeing all these orbs. Why are we doing this? Why are things happening out in the environment that are affecting people so much? And why are people getting injured during this? So that's been my background, and we've been doing a lot of work now in this area. And I think it's actually come to the point where a major portion of the world population is interested in this. And this is amazing because now we have a much larger population where everybody was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, were petrified to even make any kind of indication that they were seeing something or having these experiences. Now it's, with the social media, I think it's much more open. And I think we've come in a really good time to do this.
Very nice. Yeah. So you invented and developed the MUPAS, right? I mean, I know this. I'm just kind of
Yeah.
reiterating for the
Yeah.
audience here.
So invented or built a device that was responsible for being in the location of people that are known to get hurt when they have experiences like seeing a craft or seeing an orb or having these situations where they get into a catatonic state and they would actually see into the future or see into the past, and then they would walk away with some injuries. So they said, well, if something physiological can change if something can change your physiology, then it must be some external signals, that we could pick up some RF or some, changes in the acceleration vector, the magnetic vectors, or something. We must be able to read something to trigger to know when something is happening. So, we set out, and I was funded by these great people in Austin, Dr. Hal Puthoff, who is a very famous physicist and adventurer into the unknown, and funded me to in a group of, just myself, it was a group of people to go out and try to figure out what's going on and get some information and kick this whole thing off. And that's what we've been doing for a while, and it led to several pieces of equipment, which allows us to go into anybody's environment, either something that's as local as a watch or something that is like in your living room or something like that, or out in the field, we have devices and record very subtle changes in environmental signals, and then report those back up to the cloud with your narratives of what happened. So a lot of people, right now we've got probably like 300 people all over the world that have these devices, and they report one or two narratives per day of, I saw an orb, or I felt very, very tired, and then I woke up in a scared state, and those kind of narratives help us to understand why they're having these experiences. And now we have a very large network, and it's funny. Armando was talking about all over the world. He's got these devices, and what we're seeing now is that we have a concentration of devices in such locales that we're seeing propagations of experiencing signals from device to device that are close to each other. So, the software that we have actually look at not just individual devices, but devices that are close to other devices, and we can see propagations going through and pinging different devices, different people, and as this wave of energy flows through. So, we're very fortunate to be in a situation now where the very large population of people are willing to help us figure this thing out.
That's one thing I find really funny about the whole disclosure movement, or just the phenomenon in general, is people like to say that there's no data. And so this is kind of made up. There's actually no data. Well, it's right here. I'm talking to two people, both of you guys, that are collecting real scientific data. Um, so is it that there's no data, or is it that the data is just not reaching the masses?
Well,
Um,
so that's a excellent question. I think Armando, you can chime in on this. But I think right now there's several citizen scientists that are picking up the ball, moving it forward, and trying to answer the questions that we know that the government at some point tried to do or is maybe doing. But their disclosure process, like you said, is not going to be as open as something like for us. When we get into this thing, and Armando's going to say the same thing, we want people to know about this. We want to give them the data. So we're going to leave it open for them to see what's going on a day-to-day basis.
but at the same time, we also want people's identities to be protected, right?
Yeah, that
To
is the
where
challenge.
the
Yep.
the data gets filtered in a way to where it's not a specific name with a specific data
Right.
set, but more just, you could say, user one with a data set.
Yeah,
Um,
you scrub anything that relates to anything. All you're trying to do is get the content. You're trying to understand what this person was feeling during that time, and that's the thing that really, really helps us understand what's going on. So that is scrubbed of all possible information that could lead back to them or anybody, just in general category. It's just like, if we've had, what we find out is that we could take, these long narratives that people give it, boil it down to maybe 20 different key phrases, and that just basically are scrubbed of all possible indications of who they are or where it came from, and use that for the data. And that's what we roll in. And then what we release to the scientific population, not even that, we put a layer on top of that where we put that into an AI model, and they really only get to ask it questions. They don't even see what the data is. They have the ability to ask questions, and that's what they're working with.
Interesting. Um, Armando, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that the MUPA system is actually a game changer. It does have a lot of sensors that are normally not available to everyone out there. Uh, the one thing, a MUPAS Mini that I have here, I got all the sensors that are available. I got the camera, I got um, the
Spectrum
spectrum
analyzer.
analyzer.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep,
yeah.
and the
And the gamma, yeah. So
gamma.
and
Yep,
and I'm watching this. I have three screens here for my
nice.
computer, and this is always on. So I can watch it. The other thing that I
Yep,
normally keep on my other screen is the weather data.
yep.
Because there are some changes in the weather, especially if it's something closer that I can see from the MUPAS Mini, and I can also
Well, that's
uh,
interesting.
get a report. From my Accurite, I can request a report for any date that I want, and I will get a spreadsheet and will show me the numbers. So it's very accurate. They put a very nice report. And I can do the same thing with the Weather Underground. I share my information with the Weather Underground. So both, I can get both reports. I tend to like the Weather Underground reports a little better. That for me is easier to understand. But it's information, it's data. And that's what I think that is needed when it comes to studying, UAPs. It's one thing to say I saw something, and most people, if you go out there, some people will laugh at you. But they won't laugh at you if you can say, "Here's the
Here's the
data."
data point. Yep. This is what I saw.
I
Here's the
cannot,
spikes.
I cannot tinker with the equipment. These
Yeah.
are pretty sophisticated sensors. And this is the data that I'm getting, and that stops people from, making fun. So my goal is to little by little get more equipment. So hopefully all the equipment, if there's a sighting nearby, all the equipment will, I will get information from different sources.
Yep.
And it's perfect to have that. So that's one of my goals.
Well, it's interesting you say that. So one of the things that we do is when somebody has a report of some phenomena that they experience, and like I said, it's on a daily basis. What we'll go through, we have we can go get weather for a local area, just over the internet and just grab it and bring it down. And
Mhm.
we look for any anomalies in like the weather pattern that might have caused it or something like that. So we spin environmental stuff that we're collecting off the internet. We also spin in any social media type of thing. So we grab a lot of the Reddit data. We grab a lot of the data that is available that people are talking. When something strange happens in an area, people start talking about it.
Oh,
And that's
absolutely.
what we want to grab that. It's very, very important because it's not a local phenomenon. If there's something that's happening, probably several people, and like I said, we have devices that show that this phenomenon is propagating from device to device. But then they go on they go on their social media platform and they start talking about it, and we're grabbing that too. And so, we're bringing in all this data. So, Armando, I think you're 100% correct. Getting more data and trying to localizing something is the most important thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, Lexi,
So
why don't I show, if you don't mind, why don't I show the data that's
Sure.
being collected right now? So, we're talking about the data. Let me, if you don't mind.
yeah, no, you should be able to do a screen share. I just had one quick question about the spectrometer. So is that like a traditional CCD detector that you would put on a telescope? And then you can do spectroscopy from that by using a computer to basically click on a pixel and see.
Yes.
Um,
So it's called an SDR. It's a software-defined radio. Basically, it has the ability to figure out what the electromagnetic frequencies are or energy is at many, many different energies. In fact, if you want, I can show you a sample of one of the the spectrums that been recorded at somebody's house. If you want, I can show you
because
exactly what
the
that is.
spectrum of the orb itself would give an indication of something. I'm trying to think
Yes.
right
Yeah.
now, it would show an
Yeah.
ionization potentially of like hydrogen gas or
Something is decaying or something is actually jumping from one energy state to another, giving off photons. We pick it up in our sensors, and it spikes in one particular area. That's something that we look for. It's very, very
and that would be like the
interesting.
Larimer and Balmer lines, if I'm remembering that properly.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, those are a little
Okay.
bit high. Those are well above what we can read. What we're mostly reading in the microwave. But don't forget, anytime you get super high energy stuff, you get a lot of harmonics. You get a lot of side stuff, and that's what we could pick up. We could pick up anything like below 6 gigahertz and above 400 megahertz. Anything above those things are more getting into the higher end microwave that we don't have the antennas for, but um, we know that once something energetic comes into your environment, it's going to spread a lot of energy over the entire spectrum. So we're looking over we look at a very, very small part of the spectrum, but we feel that the energy is going to bleed off to that small range if something big is going to happen.
Interesting. Yeah, because I guess CCDs are more for the visible light spectrum.
Yeah, definitely for the visible light. Yeah, so
Okay,
you
not
can,
so much for the what did you call that? The SDI?
it's an SDR, so it's a software
SDR.
defined
Okay.
radio. Been around for many, many years. It's a very inexpensive way of doing a microwave spectrometer.
Mhm.
And
Okay, I've
it's,
never used one of those. That's okay. Yeah,
yeah,
very
and
interesting. Thank you.
we have one that you can just take it and plug into the back of the device and it just works, it just, in fact, if you want, I can show you one of the results of,
Yeah, go ahead and do the screen share if you want to go through that
yep.
information, the data.
Yeah, so looking at this particular site, if I go and I look at electromagnetic spectrum, the microwave spectrum, I'm going to get all these dots here. And this is the spectrum from right now. So this is the electromagnetic spectrum for a period of time of today at 5:37. So this is the spectrum. And as I walk up, you can see it changing. What we're looking for here is like big deviations. So I get a lot of stuff in this range, like in the 1.2, 1.05 range. But every once in a while, you'll get like big jumps, and that's an indication of something energetic has kind of pinged that frequency. So this is the amount of energy in each of the frequency buckets from so this is so that looks to be about 100 megahertz up to 1.8 or 1.8 gigahertz. And it just sits there all day and reads it, and it basically is just recording this. And this is what the system is doing, is just
Mhm.
sitting and recording all day long. And then of course we have another sensor inside the device, which is just the electromagnetic energy. So that just tells you like at this particular time, so at 5:40, there was a spike in the electromagnetic energy that got to 18 K or 18,000. And then I've seen spikes in this with this device, up to almost 50,000. So big spikes. And of
Whose
course, what we're
device is this
looking,
right now? Is this it's not mine, is
this
it?
is right now. No, this is not your device. Your device
Okay,
is
but
this
you have
one.
that spike at 540 there on the infrasound?
Yep. So this is your device. Oops, I got two of you. I got two of the, hold on. Let me go and pick another. I got to pick something else. So this is your device right now. Whoops, sorry. So that's you right now. So I'm looking at Alexei's device that is right behind him basically, and it's picking up some high. So RF wise, is picking up, oh, this is actually a pretty big spike, by the way. This is a good spike. So this is 19K. So 19K is a good spike. And this
Yeah,
is
well, what I was noticing was that the one you just showed was also currently today, and it showed a spike at 540.
yeah, so that was this device. Yep, at 540.
And my device also had that same spike at 540.
Yeah, and I see a lot of this. So I see, and the software is doing that. It's looking at all the devices, all 300 devices is looking at all over the world, looking at correlations, not just in their particular data over the channels, but other people's data with their data. So looking at saying like these two devices look to be at this particular time synced up. And then what happens that people start adding these narratives into this that show us that there are strange things going on. And they can put in like, for instance, I can go into here and I can look at this and say, oh, I didn't spell it right, but and then I can have a observation inside of here that we can look at to say, okay, now here's an observation of this particular thing. And it'll show me the observation. So as people see these things, they can say, oh wow, this looks like it was an event, and I felt something at this time. And the computer is going to use this information, these observations, along the way to actually give credibility or understand how this is correlated with other things. So, this is a very interesting way of collecting data so people can actually make basically observations of this, and I can take that information and use it to understand what's going on at that time. So again, this is information that's coming from Alexei's device. And of course, right now it doesn't mean anything because we're in a we're recording and stuff like that. But over like a long period of time, we start seeing trends that allows us to say, well, okay, you have a electromagnetic spike here. You have an acceleration spike, which is kind of weird. But there's a
That was
spike
when I
in
was testing the Z-axis
oh,
and I
that's right.
turned
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
MUPAS
That's
on its
right.
side.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So you've got some electromagnetic stuff, but just to give you an idea, is that what we're trying to do is we're taking and recording different things like the pressure. Armando was talking about the weather. What we see is like this is the pressure, which is an indication of like what the relative pressure is of our environment. Like, is it going to rain? And what's the millibars that people talk about? That is it going to rain? Is it going to be sunny and things like that? But what we find is because it's a device that really knows how to collect information about the pressure in the room, when we have energetic spikes come through that is like orb based or like some UAP or something, what we'll get is like we might get an RF spike, but at the same time, we might get a spike in the pressure that indicates, something energetic entered it, screwed up all of the air molecules and made a big spike in your the pressure indicator. So that's one of the things we look at is pressure, and humidity is another one. You must have an air conditioner that's going on and off, so the humidity is going up and down. So
And
this is
that's
your
where it's really
humidity.
important to understand what you're looking at because yes, that is my AC.
Yeah, so it
Yeah.
goes on and off every once in a while. So it goes on, the humidity drops, then it goes off, then it might click on, then it goes off. So and then I'm sure the temperature is doing the same thing. Yeah, you can see the wiggle of the temperature as your air
Yep.
conditioner goes on and off. Um, but basically, this is what is being looked at by the MUPAS software that is actually looking at different variations. So this is kind of normal, but then when you get these big old spikes in here, and people say that there's something going on in my house, and let's see if I can get some pressure information here. So this is not, nothing actually happening here. There's no big things, but I can go like for the day. Whoops. For the day, you can see this is for the whole day. Let me go for let me go for the week. The week is kind of interesting because it'll tell you a lot of information. So this is for the week. So this is July 23rd up to now. And you can see, actually I can turn on trend lines.
I like using the trend line. I feel like that's very helpful.
Yeah, the trend lines are cool because it kind of weeds out all the other stuff. And what you'll get these big spikes now. So big spikes actually become more prevalent when you use trend lines. And then now, of course, they'll stand out more. And then people, of course, most people don't see these in real time. They don't really know this is happening. Most people only see this after a period of time left of 3 days. So they don't really know this is happening. And then what we do is we look at the narratives and see whether or not, these spikes are actually occurring when people are saying, they're having these episodes of experiencing where, they might see a creature or they might see an orb or a UAP or have that flight or fright type of emotional thing that experiencers have when, they're actually going through one of their episodes.
And the reason for that delay is to remove bias and also a placebo effect, right? Like a mind over matter type placebo
Yeah,
effect.
yeah. Some people have, if I know there's a lot of people that watch these things. Like I can go over to the real time data and actually see this stuff in real time. Or I can look at the electromagnetic spectrum in real time. And if they see a spike, you'll see this enormous spike. So this is my dosimeter actually registering. So this is not a very high spike, but every once in a while there'll be a big spike and that could make somebody say, "Oh, there's a spike. I must be having an experience," and they'll report it at that point, and it kind of skews the data a little bit, and it doesn't really lend itself well to good, solid scientific methods.
I have one more question, and then I want to turn over to Armando for a second.
Yeah,
You were showing a graph earlier, and I think it said energy on the left, and it had the frequencies on the bottom.
yeah. So
Um,
that's whoops.
I feel like it was a box that opened up.
Yeah, so that was, let me actually get to that. So that was the microspectrum. So this is the spectrum. Oh, I gotta go back to, it's too many. So let me go back to an hour.
Yep.
See, that's a nice little trend.
Well,
So
this
this is
exactly this one. So the question I had was, on the left you have the y-axis. What I know energy is typically in joules. What are we looking at here where it says 0 to 1.4?
so this energy is basically, I think it's like watts per meter per, um, I forgot exactly what it is, but the unit is like watts per meter per something per unit area or something like that. And it's
So
fairly
that would
relative.
be the joules. Is that correct? Or we should,
Joules is like, yes, joules are something close to that, but this actually, because this is normalized, this is probably not, this is not an absolute thing. So, but of course, this is the x-axis is absolutely, so this is the frequency, and then this is relative normalized.
okay, by
This is
normalized you mean you basically create a one and then everything is somewhat of a ratio of that?
exactly, yeah.
Okay.
So it's normalized on something. So this is automatically normalized by the device that's being made to do this. And it takes it and gives you a relative energy based upon some line. So, this might be one, but then of course you can have, it goes up to, I've seen up to like 1.8, 1.9 energy come out of this thing. And it just, what we're looking for was we're not looking for absolutes. What we're looking for is relative changes on a day-to-day basis. So we take a line that says, okay, you basically your background noise, things that are happening, your microwave, your phones, your this and that have this much energy. And if you have a situation where you find yourself having experience and all of a sudden you get like a 10x change of energy, that's significant, and that's what we can look for.
Thank you. That clarifies a lot for me. Yep. Armando,
And
do
I
you have any
think
thoughts on
Armando, you
this?
you have the same kind of things, right? You look at these
Yep.
things and you look for variations, in your radar equipment and things like that.
On the Meta, we get it's a spreadsheet with the numbers, and it basically shows you the readings, radiation meters. It shows you magnetic field. There's an electronic compass there. It shows you if there's a shift in and the compass. Um, so it's a little different than, well, a lot different than what you have here. This is more detailed, um, more precise, I would say.
Yeah.
And so Armando, you're saying that yours basically shows magnetic north and how that shifts around?
No, what it shows is um the position of the meter unit where you put it, and it doesn't matter where you put it. That's irrelevant. It doesn't necessarily have to point north. It can point anywhere. But what we look for is any changes of more than 3 degrees. Once we see any changes of more than 3 degrees on the magnetic compass, that's something that we start to look at. Um, there was a recent sighting here where we had a shift in the magnetic field on the compass of more than 5 degrees. Um, so that told us that something was going on, and we can look at that information from different MEDAR nodes. In this case, they compared node 106 with node 139 in Wallingford, which were the closest one to that sighting, which was about 20 miles from here. But it still, there was a noticeable change in the instruments.
And again, so this is real data
Mhm.
related to the phenomenon. And that's why I find it so interesting that people, I don't know if they just have their head in the dirt and they're saying there's no data, but come on, there's real data associated with the phenomenon right here. It's right in front of you. Um, and then I had another thought that came to mind. Um, so when it comes to the magnetic twisting of 3 degrees,
Mhm.
or I think we were talking about the accelerometers and how it'll show the right hand rule,
Mhm.
essentially.
That's the magnometers and
Or
the
that was the
gyroscope.
magnetometer.
Mhm.
Sorry, go
Magnetometer
ahead.
and the gyroscope. Yep,
Okay, and so that itself is more speaking on distortions within the space-time metric.
that's exactly right.
Okay. Can you explain what that is to the layman in a way?
Well, we're surrounded by a gravitational field, a field that keeps us, pinned to the earth, and it happens to bend when you have large, massive objects. So, like the sun has a gravitational field, the earth has the moon has a gravitational field, and we exist in this field. And we basically were pulled down to earth because of this field, luckily. Sometimes when you have energetic objects that enter your atmosphere, that can change a little bit. And like say a UAP that's doing faster than light travel might have an engine that is so powerful that it does affect that gravitational field a little bit. And they call that the metric. It's a fancy word for it, but basically it's the field that's around us that keeps us pinned to the earth. And sometimes when you get these large energetic objects that come cruising by and you can see them, you pick them up on infrared, they can change the field around you very, very slightly, so slightly that you would never really feel it, but instruments could feel it. So like your magnometer would like twitch a little bit in certain directions depending on what it is, or your gyroscope would twist a little bit depending on, and that's what we look for is very, very slight twitches in these signals at the same time. Somebody's seeing something, which indicates that there's something physical in the environment that's strong enough or energetic enough to make these changes in our gravity fields. And that's what this whole idea of looking at these signals constantly is that if something came to this planet with enough energy, to travel faster or, be able to, come here and with a probe or whatever, that is changing our actually what we live in, our gravitational fields.
And that would almost be like water to a fish. Like it's hard for us to distinguish the gravitational field in the metric because we exist within it, and
Right.
it's hard to see those twists. Just like, and I know it's a stretch, but just like it's hard for a fish to understand that it's swimming in water. Uh,
Right, but it would notice a slight change if another fish flew by it and it changed it very slightly, it would feel that. And so
right.
we feel that. We feel that, our body hasn't evolved enough to really feel that to have but our subconscious might feel that that our subconscious is very, very sensitive. But we have instruments that you can locate around you that will ping and send you a notification that say, look, that we just saw that there's like for instance, if you look at going back to this, this is a situation where Alexei picked up his device, but if we see this happen when a reporting of some kind of a UAP interaction or orb interaction, we would report back to the person, something happened at this moment when you reported your UAP, and we got these very strange deviations in the acceleration vector. Or, if we switch over to the magnetic vector, it says, oh, we also had some weird stuff going on your magnetic vector. The magnetron picked up, or the magnetometer picked up something very strange. So these are good indications. So normally when this happens, this spike that's here, that's a little bit old, these are a little bit old. This is it happened maybe like a half an hour ago. If this actually did line up with this, that would be a significant thing. And, this actually, there is a little bit of hitch here, but not that much. But, it's basically what we're looking at here is just indications that there's something in our environment that's moving around, shaking, that's energetic, that's causing us to have these experiences. And that's what this whole study has been designed to pick up and report back and try to get understanding of what the heck's going on and why are we feeling this and what's the origin of this.
I find that really interesting. And also when you relate it to propulsion, theoretical propulsion of using, you could say, space-time metric engineering in order to create propulsion, I believe you'd want to create a compressed state of space-time in front of you and an expanded state behind
That's
you.
correct, right?
And so that if there were beings or wherever they're coming from other planets, well, you would expect to see some type of space-time distortion if they're traveling at speeds relative to the speed of light or faster. Um, so
That's
I
correct.
think it's a really good indicator as well. It's interesting.
And it's something that's been around for 50 years. I mean, the people have been seeing things and measuring. So there's a lot of people that like their cell, their phones will wig out, or their electric inform, maybe their computers will wig out, or something will happen.
Hmm.
And computers exist in an environment that is very, very noise free. They can't really contend with a lot of outside metric noises, because that'll start firing off these transistors in a weird way and make everything bad. So that's why what happens when something energetic enters your atmosphere and fools around with the space-time metric, like the gravitational vectors and the gravitational space, our electronics gets affected. So when people say, my watch stopped, or my phone wigged out, or, my battery went, right down to zero, I'm not surprised, because it takes a lot of energy for these things to actually keep working in an environment where things are jiggling around.
Very interesting. Armando, I had a question about, so you have a spectrograph connected to your MUPAS device, is that correct?
Spectrometer, yep. So,
But spectrometer, sorry.
yeah.
Um, have you found anything interesting with that? Or what is the most interesting thing you've seen with the spectrometer?
I haven't looked in detail at a lot of the data that is there. There's a lot of information coming in, and it takes a little bit to learn how to read these graphs. So that's something that I'm working on. Um, but it is it is an ongoing project. I haven't noticed um, any alerts coming in. Um, so I don't think that anything odd is happening in my area here. There has been some a tone that I will hear, and I talked to Jim briefly about this a while back. You will hear the ringing, but if you cover your ears, you still hear it. So it's not an external source. My wife also would have heard it. She's got excellent hearing, a lot better than mine, and she doesn't hear anything. So I think that it's uh, maybe either some type of microwave or something like that that is causing that. And that usually happens after 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, or a little later, or earlier, I should say. Um, but it's not something that I've seen on the MUPAS. I haven't seen any spikes during that time, but it's something that I'm keeping an eye on.
Yeah, so it's interesting. A lot of people in your situation that have these experiences talk about their sensing, they're sensing sounds that really aren't there. And so it kind of leads you to believe that something else is exciting the two nerves in your ears
Mhm.
that are connected to your brain, the cochlea, and that just, I mean, just screams, electromagnetic or magnetic variations. So normally what we see is when people say that they heard a sound or things like that, we look over in the magnetic vector, and we usually get some little perturbation in the magnetic vector, or the gyroscopic vector, because all these things, your brain is just one big electrical circuit. It's got all these things, the axons are firing, and all these things are firing, and all your nerves are sending signals. So you get some outside signals that come in, and your brain is actually interpreting those, because it thinks it's part of its normal processes.
Mm.
You know what just reminded me of is there's the technology that you can use to create sounds. That's not a headset, but I believe it either vibrates the bone next
Yep.
to your ear or your jaw. And you could potentially do something like that was it acoustic wave? Not well, you could do it with acoustic waves, but also I believe EM radiation. If you just target it properly, use the proper frequencies. And so, how is there a way to distinguish between man-made technologies that I believe even Jacques Vallée said it, is that we have the technologies to almost reproduce this within people. So, how is there a way to distinguish between a man-made technology and a man-made event versus a true like because you've heard about Havana syndrome, right? That came out.
Mhm.
I'm guessing that was man-made technology that was used on a group of people. Is there a way to distinguish between man-made technology and a true phenomenon?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. Armando, you want to field that one?
That I don't know the answer to that one.
Yeah, I think that's a tough one because I believe that because there's so little known about this phenomena that's exciting all of these nerve endings and causing us to have these experiences that we don't know whether or not it's something that is born from some human technology or some artificial technology or some extraterrestrial technology. We don't really
Mm.
know. So it's hard to classify those to say, okay, I think this is man-made and I think this is something that's from non-terrestrial type of origins. But I can tell you that we could probably tell something that's man-made and something that's natural. I mean, there's a lot of natural things that give you these warbling electromagnetic energies that comes from like a collapsing star. I mean, we'll give you all of these crazy, high energy, the warblings that people hear that people can sometimes pick up because they're just very sensitive. They might not consciously understand them, but subconsciously they might have some indication that something happened, some exploding star or some gamma ray burst or something like that that enters the atmosphere and they can pick it up. So that you can tell the difference. I'd say you probably have a good bet of telling the difference between that because there's so many categories or that we've categorized those so well over the years.
Oh, that's really interesting. You also mentioned the subconscious mind a few times or in this conversation. So I'm just going to kind of guess, and that's potentially why children could be more susceptible to the phenomenon itself, is because their conscious minds haven't so much solidified
That's right.
through the things that they've been taught, right, throughout their lifetime.
Right.
So they're very fluid. They don't really know what the brain doesn't know yet what's important and what's not important information.
That's correct. Right. And I think that when people get injured, they have, some traumatic brain injury or something like that, the brain resets, and then you get this onslaught of experiences that they never got when, prior to some accident. So, like if they were in a car accident and they hit their head on the steering wheel or the dashboard, they come out and say, all of a sudden I started having these experiences. I started seeing things, started seeing orbs. I started
Mm.
doing this, or they maybe got sick and they spiked a 105 fever or something like that, and ever since then they had they started seeing things and experiencing. So it's amazing that probably we have a survey that people fill out when they join the study, and I would say 20 to 25% of the people say that they didn't have one experience until they had in a medical event that actually then all of a sudden it just started. And then it started to have some, big one, and then it just cascaded and had more and more and more. So once you have the first one, you have more and more, it keeps on going. But there's usually, so that's exactly right. Your brain gets reset. Your subconscious constantly tries to rationalize things. As we get older and older, we start getting all of these things that we learn from society and our parents and wherever. Those are the filters that we use to kind of get rid of all that stuff and rationalize it so we don't get scared. But kids don't have that problem because they don't haven't spent enough time in society yet. People that have injuries to get that all reset so they come out saying, oh my God, this is amazing. Now I'm having experiences. I see things and I see orbs and UAPs and everything.
I don't think I'm making this up. but I might be. I remember there being, just because I'm pretty sure this is a real study. They did a study, and I don't know if it was cats or mice or something of that nature, but they put them in a room and they had them from the moment they were born. The room was only filled with horizontal lines, or it was only filled with vertical lines. Then after about maybe halfway through their life, I don't actually, that's what I'm saying, I don't actually know the full details. They put them in a room with vertical lines, and their brain couldn't comprehend a vertical line because they had solidified their mind essentially to horizontal lines.
Mhm.
So that seems like it's similar to
That's
what's
very
going on
that's
with culture.
that's cool. And that is a great. I mean, I feel sorry for the mice or the cats or whatever, but
Right.
that's a great experiment. It kind of shows exactly what I just said. That we get these, anybody that's you go through college, you go through your life and your bosses and all these people are telling you how to be and what to think and how to do this. And that's what you use to filter out, so when people have experiences, they use those filters to rationalize it and understand what's going on. But you know they switch them up when you get a whole switch, they can't do that anymore. It's so I wouldn't suggest anybody try to go out and hurt themselves, but it is one of those situations where when people get hurt, they tend to start having experiences.
Marna, do you want to chime in real quick or
Yeah, I think that James is right on the hit the nail right on the head. And in my case, I think a lot of the experiences that I have had may have been or have been actually after some couple of accidents that I had. As a child, I was hit by a car riding my bicycle,
Ooh.
and it hit me and it sent me flying across the street and it banged my head against the sidewalk. A pretty good bump on me. Bike was a pretzel, but I other than the bump, I was okay. And then later in life, heading with a friend up to Montreal. Uh, 91 wasn't built all the way into Canada at the time, and right around St. Johnsbury, um, that's where 91, the construction for 91 pretty much was taking place. Um, we had to take an exit. For whatever reason, all the lights went out. And we could see it. I remember looking at my friend, he looked at me, and then next thing I know, he's dragging me out of the car, uh, flipped the car over.
Oh,
So I ended up banging my head on the side, several stitches. But I think that that made a lot of sense with what you said about the brain resetting and because of a trauma that was suffered. I've had a lot of people asking me, why do you think that you see all the things? And I really don't have an answer to give them, other than I do see these things. I don't see them every day, but from time to time, even when I'm not looking for them, or anything like that, I will see something odd or uh, that doesn't conform to the norm. Like I was
yeah,
saying
I think
earlier.
it's amazing what our brains can do. And like I said, it's trying to process things. And what you're talking about, your accidents, and people have, there's lots of accidents going around that
Mm.
people have. They just are left with a change of their physiology and their brains and the way it operates.
Well, it seems like it has a lot to do with efficiency as well with the brain. And that's one of the reasons why it solidifies into the way you perceive reality, is because
Yep.
you've kind of termed these things as not dangerous, they're not a threat. For example, driving my car down the road, I don't really think too much about it anymore. But if I were to get in a big accident, all of a sudden now, hey, driving's a threat. That's going to create a rewiring in the way that my brain is seeing reality. And that can also come across potentially as like a PTSD.
Mm.
Say you went to war, now you have this PTSD from loud booms. You think it's a mortar dropping or something of that nature. Um, and so one thing I've noticed too is, so to get rid of those PTSDs, people will use I don't like to use the word drugs, but they'll use additives to put their brain state, to switch their brain state. For example, psilocybin. will allow them to hit a different brain modality, which essentially breaks down the way that they see reality. And after that, they have somewhat of a rewiring of their
Mhm.
brain. Um, so I just find that very interesting in the relationship there. It's almost we get solidified into our perceptions of reality. And we were speaking before we started this conversation. That's the simplest way. I call those delusions because we've been taught certain ways of living and certain things. And each one of those is somewhat a posture you've taken, but not with your body. It's a posture you've taken with your mind in the way you're perceiving reality.
Right.
And I find that's interesting how those postures we take in mind relate to our ability to connect to phenomenon and how it alters the way we perceive reality. Um, but I noticed you brought up this page. So this is how you can actually join to be part of the MUPAS study. Is that what you're showing here, Dr. Jim?
Yeah, I want to show people the devices. I think it's very important to note that, you've got these devices that allow you to have all sorts of, and you can see all the crazy stuff that it measures. I mean, Armando was talking about all these signals and the microwave, the gamma, the accelerometers, the gravity vector, the humidity barometer, and you can plug in all these other, like the spectrum analyzer, and you can, and then you can, get your portal and have it work for you. And then, of course, one of the most exciting things is that we have a sponsor that has allowed us to provide a number of people out in the world that want to be involved and have the ability to understand what's going on and have a portal and have a device. So, this is, in fact, we can, if you want, we can post this, in the chat. I don't know how you, Alex, I don't know how you're gonna want to do this, but you could probably put this there and give everybody this link. But this is a place where you can go and sign up and read about all of the great things that you can have when you actually do it. And this is Alexei's personal site here that he's got a whole bunch of followers now that came into the site. We have an opening for up to 10,000 people to join this worldwide, and we're getting very, very reception all over the world. And I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that you know you're not just sitting there watching a bunch of three people talk about something like this. You can get involved in this. You could be part of it. You can actually have a device that allows you to understand what's going on in your environment, journal all the things that are happening to you and be part of the study. And not just to be part of the scientific study, but to give yourself, some information that allow you to, really take hold of what's going on and not really take charge of your experiences, but understand your experiences more and understand what the origins of them are. So if anybody's interested in reading about it and getting involved in the study, it doesn't cost, hardly anything to get involved. Like I said, I have a sponsor that is providing the funding for this, but you have to, sign up and you have to take a very short survey so we can understand you. And there's also just wanted to mention that there's also professional, I wouldn't say professional, I'm sorry, experienced people that have been, experiencing things for many, many years that you can sign up to talk to. And like if you're having a real problem with an experience, or you're afraid to go out the door because of this, or something, you're afraid your children will get hurt or something, you can talk to these people who've had this experience before. And so there's a way to sign up to actually do this. I know when people see things like see orbs or see UAPs, they get frightened because they think it's something's going to hurt them. But sometimes just talking it out with somebody and just being in a community where you can talk about it, privately with nobody else listening to you, that's a great thing. So we have that available. And like I said, it's a neat little thing that's actually going worldwide now. We've got people all over the world that we just I think we're in 15 countries now. It's we're understanding what it costs to ship things out all over the world is very expensive, but they're
It
they're
can be
they're signing
expensive
up.
to ship, yes.
Yeah, very expensive to ship, but we do a lot of Australia, South America now. We're all over the place.
I'll put a link in the description of the video when I post it. That way people that are
That's
watching
super,
can
yeah.
just
So
look at the
I'm gonna put it in the
description.
chat so you have it, just to make sure that you have it. Where is the chat?
Yep. And then currently we have over 300 in the phase 2 study of the MUPAS, but funding for up to 10,000. And
Yeah,
I had a question. Oh, well, I'm going to do a quick thing and then ask the question. So in the first study, you had 35 or 36 participants, or
that's
37
correct.
participants with 35 devices. And then that study lasted about 5 years,
I think it's three and a half years, and then we
three and a half
kind of said
years.
we have
How
enough
long
data.
is the phase 2 study going to last for?
We don't know. We hope that it lasts forever. It's not something that I think it's going to be perpetual because we're going to get more and more people as this get more and more popular. We get more and more people, and then we're going to disseminate. We're going to start bringing in all this data, stripping it down, and getting it to its rear, or in basic form, and then allowing other scientists in academia or around the world to sign up to be able to view some of the data, use it in their research. So I don't what we don't want to do is have all these pockets of research going on. We kind of, in fact, Armando, you kind of like said something about this. We kind of have to centralize all this information
Yes.
and make it so we're all talking the same talk. We all have the same language, and we're all actually unified in what we're trying to understand. So, we want to take all this information and make it available to everybody to run their own experiments and look at it and slice and dice it and come up with their own analysis, their own kind of theories. And that's what we're looking for to do.
Yeah, Armando, you said you had 140 devices or so detecting radiation earlier. Did I hear that right?
No, I have, there's 4 radiation meters on my house.
No, you all over the world, you have these,
Oh, the Mater
the
unit
Meta.
is
Yeah.
about 170
Oh,
plus
wow.
worldwide.
So eventually
That's
you
great.
could say that data set will get tied in with the MUPAS data set as well, is what you're talking about there, Dr. Jim.
Maybe, could be.
Potentially.
Yeah,
Okay.
potentially. We would like to have, like I said, bring in data from a lot of different places.
Mhm.
The MUPAS device obviously brings in lots of data. We would like to bring in weather. We'd like to bring in social media data, look at all of the comments, just like, the comments people make. Very, very important to cipher that information and bring it in.
Armando, you mentioned that you've seen orbs in the past. Have you ever had the spectrometer? I want to make sure I'm saying the right word because I know you can do spectroscopy with a spectrometer. But what is that what you called it earlier? The spectrometer?
It's a spectrum analyzer, basically. It gives
Spectrum,
you
okay.
the energy in every buckets of frequency.
Armando, have you been able to capture an orb with the spectrometer yet?
No, I haven't. We were able to capture one with a camera. My wife took a picture of it a few years back. Um, this was actually in a town nearby. Um, it was flying pretty much at treetop level, just a little lower, and we spotted it. There's 3 of us. We were looking at it. Uh, the guy that was with me served in the military in an aircraft carrier. And the first words out of his mouth is, doesn't have a propeller, doesn't have wings, there's no markings on it. I says, I have no idea what that is. And I couldn't agree with him more. So it went by, and we continued to do some work that we were doing there. And here it comes again, or at least we thought it was the same one. Well, that happened 3 times. And one of my friends that had gone to a fireworks display in another town, about 15 miles from here or so. I mentioned it to him. I showed him a picture, and he says, I saw the same thing coming home.
Hmm.
So that was something that we were not expecting. It caught us totally by surprise. Of course, I didn't have any type of equipment with me um, other than the camera, and so we did get a picture of it. There's been other instances where I gotten pictures as well. Nearby, but no, it didn't happen to have any kind of equipment with me when I had those sightings. The only one that where we had the sighting was the one out in West Hartford, and on that one, the Maters went a little crazy at about the same time when we saw it. But no other equipment on site.
Was that the one we were speaking about earlier where you mentioned that you looked up flight data just to confirm that it wasn't an airplane or it wasn't a weather balloon?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I believe there's an app. I think it's called the Flight Tracker app. I'm not sure which one you use, but it
Yeah.
has all the different flights.
Yeah, there's Flight Radar 24, there's Flight Aware, forgot what the other one is called, but there are several ones that will show you the flights in the area. I happen to have the business class. I have a small Raspberry Pi. I put together my own, and so if you go to Flight Radar 24, they're always looking for people to install their equipment. You can apply, and they will, if they need one in that location, they will send you the equipment for free. And all you have to do is just set it up, and because you're doing this, they give you the business class for free. Usually that
Huh.
costs like $500, so it's a
Oh,
pretty
no kidding.
yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and what that allows you to do is go back. I think it's like 3 months or more. So if somebody told you that they saw something in an area, last month, and they know the time and the date, the location, you can actually go back there and look at the history, and you click replay, and you can see all the planes flying by. So now you can rule out whether that person actually saw a plane flying by because it was there at the time, or there was nothing there. And then when you see that there's nothing there, that raises a lot of questions. What was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Military.
just know I watch a lot of videos, and for me, it seems like people just aren't really observing the sky very often
Yeah,
because I grew up next to an Air Force base, so I know what the headlights of an airplane coming
yeah,
directly at me looks like. But I believe it was during the New Jersey drone flap, people were saying
yeah.
they were posting stuff like this, like the orb turned into an airplane, and they were just amazed by it.
Mm,
Um, but clearly, it was most likely just an airplane flying at them straight head on the entire time, and then they were able to distinguish it was an airplane and not an orb. So, to help reduce the amount of sensationalism that gets posted on the internet by random observers, I think it's really important that people double check their work before they start saying, "Hey, I saw this
right.
thing. It's clearly a
Yeah.
UFO. We have no idea what it is," but it's like, no, that was an airplane. That was lightning strike. It's really good to double check your work. I just want to say that because a lot of people are building on the hype of sensationalism, and I believe it's muddying the water of true investigation and a proper disclosure. Um, that's all I
Yeah.
wanted to add to that.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think it's an,
a few months back, I had it was last year actually. Uh, on my way out, um, I happened to look at the sky and I spotted a little white dot moving. It was moving a little faster than a plane would normally move. And I said, huh, that's kind of odd. And I kept on going. And I was almost, ready to get in the car. And I said, let me take another look. I went back and took another look. And I said, it's probably nothing. I went back to the car and I said, let me just go back and take a picture just for ha-has. So I did that. I took a picture. So of course, in the picture on your phone, when you swipe it up, it gives you all the information of the location where you took the picture, the date and time, and so forth.
Mhm.
So it's a great resource that we all have in
sure.
our pockets. Um, so later on, I looked at Flight Radar 24 and a couple of other sources. Uh, there was no plane flying at that time between my house and Bradley Airport. Um, and I thought it was interesting. Sometimes the military planes will turn their transponders off, and you do not pick them up. Or everything was white. Um, don't know of many military planes that are white. The only other planes that I could think that are white is the ones that NASA uses. Um, but will not understand why they will turn the transponders off. So anyway, nothing there. I looked at my data from the weather station to see if there were any changes in the barometric pressure or temperature or anything like that, and I did not see any. So to this day, I don't know what it is. It does look a little bit like a tic tac, but I'm not going to go out that far to say that that's what it was because I don't have enough data to say that. But anyway, there was something interesting. That's something that I would encourage anybody to do. Take a picture. If you see something that looks kind of out of place, take a picture. And there's a lot of resources online for free that you can use to check. And of course, if you're not familiar with some of this stuff, I'm sure that you can ask somebody, a friend, or contact one of the UFO groups to get some advice on how to double check on the information that they have to get an answer. But there's we have plenty of resources to look at these things. The MUPAS is a game changer. The Mater is a game changer. Some of the equipment that is coming out is going to help out. And there are others out there. They're a little pricey, and not within everybody's price range. But there's other equipment out there available as well. But the main idea is that this is something that we should try to collect as much data as possible, and also share with other people that are doing the same kind of work.
Yeah, 100% agree.
I just want to say that's what I think is amazing about the MUPAS project is that you don't have to have thousands of dollars to be able to join the study.
Right.
You have the sponsorship, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Segala to
Yeah.
get this to people essentially for free. And they get to pick either a MUPAS mini or a MUPAS biometric. All they have to do is take the survey.
Take the survey. Yep. Answer a couple questions. Tell us about yourself, what your experiences are, and that we can use it. And actually, we use that data to kind of seed the AI engine about you. So it understands what you are and it gives a little bit better idea of what to look for because it has all these examples of all these other people that have been, very active in the system. And it kind of tailors it for your thing. So when you do get alerts, it's kind of tailored towards you.
And that again almost speaks on that idea of how minds solidify to perceive energies in a certain way again, because every single experience or every single person on the planet is experiencing reality in life, but based off of how our minds interpret reality is what we're going to end up seeing, I guess.
That's
I mean, I
right.
don't know the best way to put that.
No, that is a great way to put it. So we
Thank you.
interpret, our forebrain is interpreting, our back brain, our subconscious brain is providing all the data. But and when it comes out to our forebrain, when we're actually looking at it, it's everybody's different because it's all different training, different way that we've been, reared in, from our families and our education and things like that. But, how do we perceive reality is different for everybody. But then, it begs the question, is somebody manipulating our reality? Is it somebody that's steering us? Are these experiences from some external force that is actually saying, think about this, do this? I have a lot of, if you look at the narratives that we get from our study participants, it's like, it's like, I felt like I was being instructed to do something. I felt like I was being taught by somebody in the future who knew something that I didn't know. It was trying to teach me and guide me in a direction. And these are so, when you read one or two, that's interesting, but we have thousands of people saying this type of thing. Or there was somebody in the past that told me something that I had no idea about, something that I researched and sure enough, it was true. Or, I was sitting there one day and all of a sudden I started writing and I was writing in a different language than I've ever had in my life, and I had to bring it to somebody to interpret it. So, I mean, all of these crazy things, you got to say, is there an external energy or external object or something that is actually getting into us and doing these things and making us, like Armando, is there somebody out, is some energy out there making you hear these tones? Is it trying to tell you something? You don't know. I mean, how do you know until you actually bring in some data, get it in good scientific method and understand? So that's what needs to be done now in a very large arena like the world. I mean, you can't isolate it to, small groups. This has to be, worldwide.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm so interested in your equipment, the MUPAS equipment, um, because it has the potential of detecting um, this, not only
While
the
you're
sounds, but
observing. Yep.
a lot of other things that could be going on that I'm not aware of.
Right.
Um, so
There's a lot of people that claim that, they see UFOs, but for every UFO you claim to see, are there hundreds of them that you've never seen that are in your environment that you just don't pick up because you're not looking or you're not aware or, they're far away or whatever. So,
there's also the possibility that they're cloaked and we
and
cannot
very
see
much
them.
so. Yeah,
We're very limited on how far or how much we can see and hear.
that's true.
Um,
Yeah.
so
That's one thing I always like to speak on actually and think about is how limited are we really? Because how can we ever see anything moving faster than the speed of light if transverse electromagnetism is our most advanced sense when it comes to the evolution of the human body itself? And so I always circle it back to like imagine if we never even had eyes and ears were our most advanced source, we would think that the speed of sound is some type of barrier. I know for a while we did think that, but then we broke the sound barrier with airplanes and whatnot. But so our ability to even comprehend reality and to do science is based off of the evolution of the human body.
mhm,
Um, and I know we have the visible spectrum. I know we have the auditory spectrum, but I'm more talking about energies that we didn't even evolve to detect.
Right.
And I think that that might be one of the greater challenges is to try to figure out what other energies do exist that could be potentially influencing us, maybe potentially the scalar field. Like,
Yeah. We don't know.
I don't know,
Okay.
you know.
Yeah.
yeah,
And
one thing that we
what about entanglement? I mean, are we, and I think we have evolved to incorporate entanglement into our psyche and the ability to detect very small things like our eyes
Mhm.
are 95% efficient because the cones talk to each other and they do that through entanglement. They do it through quantum mechanics. So the light energy that comes in is not strong enough to go and spread itself out. So, but it does it because of it's not a thermodynamic thing anymore. It's an actual quantum mechanical thing. So our eyes have incorporated entanglement into its efficiency. So, and birds have the same thing, and so many examples. But I know we covered a lot of ground in this, and I know we've been a lot of different things we've talked about. So this is great.
yeah, one thing our eyes are very good at is detecting motion. And
Absolutely. Yep.
that's usually how we tend to see things, in the sky, what's moving, um, and how fast it's moving. When you see something moving faster than you're normally used to, like planes or helicopters, that definitely catches your eye right away.
Sure.
However, if that object is motionless in the sky, you may miss it the first time, but maybe your sixth sense kicks in and said, something ain't right over there. And
Yep.
a lot of us tend to ignore our sixth sense a lot of times. There are people that have very heightened sixth sense, and I think it's important for everyone to listen to a sixth sense.
Yep. That's your back brain. I mean, that's your subconscious telling you something's wrong.
Hmm.
There's something out there. Wake up. That's 100% correct.
Absolutely.
Well, very good. Is there anything else you guys wanted to specifically touch on today? Or
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of ground. This is
Yeah, I have
great.
a quick question. Any correlation between radon gas and UFO sightings? Um, uh,
So yes, let me tell you why.
okay.
Radon it's got I forgot the half-life of radon, but that's in a normal environment. When you get an energetic field around, radon will start decaying at a faster rate, and you'll start seeing a lot of extra photons. So you'll get a lot of radon decaying, dropping off to other particles, other elementary particles, when something energetic comes around.
Okay.
So
I
it's
have
a
a I have a
go-
friend that brought it to my attention. And her theory is that, like when we have earthquakes, large amounts of radon are released from this activity from the earthquakes. And usually a lot of people see UFOs when earthquakes are happening. My
Oh,
theory is that, a lot of these UFOs that are seen, they're more than likely they're scientists studying our planet. They tend to be seen anytime there's natural disasters. Um, so if you look, you will probably get an opportunity to see more. But the theory about the radon gas being released, was something that I was, I wanted to ask somebody that knew, and that's why I brought it up.
well, it's interesting. So, I mean, if you can also speculate that if when there's a lot of excess radon, which is a radioactive gas, is in the environment, their cloaking ability could be dissipated slightly, and then you'll start picking them up because they will have less ability to blend in because you know, cloaking relies on manipulating around you. So, but if you change that suddenly with, some release of radioactive material, that's a whole new ball game. So
Mm.
it could be that their cloaking is not so great at that point.
I just had to do a quick search to double check the radon half-life and what's getting emitted. And basically the typical radon half-life that they're saying is 3.83 days. And it typically releases alpha particles. And so what
Mhm.
you're saying is basically when there's a great energetic density, or potentially what you were saying is when there's an earthquake, the half what you're basically saying is the half-life changes based off of energy density,
Yes. Yeah.
to where a larger number of alpha particles are being released.
Right.
Yep.
Or, of course, you might get a blue shift or a red shift that actually will, in our local metric, it
Yep.
might seem to go faster because you're just in a tighter space of space time. So I
Mm.
mean that's red shifting and blue shifting is a clear indication of something going on. You get a lot of
100%. And that speaks on that the metric as
yeah, that's exactly right.
exactly whether it's an expanded metric or a compressed
Or
metric based off
compressed.
of
Yep.
the energy densities coming through. What are the potentials of canceling out? So let's just say an energetic craft comes through and it's creating this expanding space-time metric. Could we use technology to basically target the expanding zone and make a contracting zone so that the two different wave types are somewhat overlapping to create like a neural
Sure.
zero, a net
Absolutely,
zero?
yeah. So it's just like wave mechanics. Wave mechanics is that you put a trough in a you put an up and a down together and it comes out to a nice clean wave. I mean, surfers know
So,
this all the time.
so theoretically, potentially, if we know that they're coming from no, I'm not going to use the word electric. I'm going to use vortices within the space-time metric.
Mhm.
If we're able to physically create the opposite counter-rotating, you can essentially
Sure,
nullify the
absolutely.
device, the ability for it to even manifest within our
Yeah.
dimension of space-time.
Yeah, and that's why they say black hole or like these wormholes are inside, just a nice clean area because it's you've got you know compression on the outside and you've got other things going on that so there's a spot in there that it's basically just floating.
Mm.
It's and that's how you can travel through these things so fast because it's basically there's basically wide open inside.